वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ओम नमो भगवते रुद्राय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम श्री कृष्णाय नमः, श्री रामचंद्राय नमः, श्री शिवाय नमः, श्री दुर्गाय नमः। ओम सर्वे गुरुभ्यो नमः, सर्वे सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। ओम श्री सूर्याय नमः, चंद्राय नमः, नक्षत्र विग्रमते नमः, नवचक्रांगाय नमः। ओम कालकंटकटाय नमः, ओम श्री अक्षराय नमः, ओम श्री परब्रह्मणे नमः। ओम नमो हनुमते भयभंजनाय, सुखं कुरु फट् स्वाहा। ओम भगवते श्री सहजानंद स्वामी महाराजाय नमः। सर्वे गुरुभ्यो नमः। ओम श्री गुरु स्तोत्रम् अखंड मंगलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितमेन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः, गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। स्थावरं जङ्गमं व्याप्तं यत्किञ्चित् सच्चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। चैतन्यः चिन्मयं व्यापि यत्सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ओम सर्वश्रुतिशिरोरत्ने विराजितपदाम्बुजः वेदान्ताम्बुजसूर्यो यः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। चैतन्य शाश्वतं शान्तः व्योमातीतो निरञ्जनः बिन्दुनादकलातीतः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ज्ञानशक्तिसमारूढः तत्त्वमाला विभूषितः भुक्तिमुक्तिप्रदाता च तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। अनेकजन्म सम्प्राप्त कर्मबन्धविदायिने आत्मज्ञानप्रदायेन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। शोषणं भवसिन्धोश्च ज्ञापनं सारसापदः गुरोर्पादोदकं सम्यक् तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। न गुरोरधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरोरधिकं तपः तत्त्वज्ञानात् परं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। मन्यातः श्रीजगन्नाथः मद्गुरुः श्रीजगद्गुरुः मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। गुरुरादिरनादिश्च गुरुः परमदैवतं गुरोः परतरं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव इति श्री गुरु स्तोत्रम्। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Okay, welcome everyone. We are continuing our exploration and exposition of the multitude of approaches within the Sanatana Dharma to guide us into higher consciousness. As I stated many times before, higher consciousness is described as Brahmasthiti. Brahmasthiti meaning one who is established within the realization that I am the infinite Brahman. I am the unlimited being. That is one way to think of it. But that is a more metaphysical way. Another very practical way to understand Brahmasthiti is the living liberation in every activity, while awake, while sleeping, while deep sleep, while interacting with others. There is a continuous liberation. So the last shlok of the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2 is like this. Esha brahmi sthiti partha nainam prapya vimuyati stitvasyam antakalepi brahma nirvana mruchati. So I have the Gita here. I'm just going to show you the actual verse here, and I'll put it on the screen also next time. But this is the last verse. Okay, so the last verse inside the Gita, chapter number 2, is like this: that this is the divine state, Arjun. Having attained this, he is not diluted. Fixed in it, even at the hour of death, he reaches the bliss of God. That's one translation. This is our goal. We want this now, not later, and not wait until the end of death. Nobody knows what happens by that time. Mind is in so much turmoil usually. So we want to establish the Brahmic state in the present, in the moment, in the day, not worrying about doing it tomorrow. So this is the point. Now, this is verse number 72 in the Bhagavad Gita. In some sense, in the Gita, chapter 2 is a summary of the whole Gita. And all of these yogas are also in there. You know, Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Tantra Yoga. Every yoga is actually in this chapter number 2. Even if you don't know the rest of the Gita, chapter 2 is enough actually. That's got it all. But it's all summarized in concentrated form. And the last verse is this indication of our goal. Our goal can be, it kind of has two parts to it. One part of this goal is the establishment sequentially of the Brahmic consciousness, which simply means that we are uncluttered, unfettered from within. Because that is the problem within the human condition. The difficulty is that we are stuck inside. There is this confusion inside, this war inside, the internal problems. In the Swamini Vato, Sri Gunatitanand Swami, who I mentioned before, he has mentioned in Gujarati language, Antarno kajiyo bo bhare che. What that means is that the internal, this wars and problems and mixtures are so intense that that is the thing. And he says if that can be resolved, then you are going to go straight into the Atma. You are just Ananda only. There's nothing else. You know, so our actual Swarup is Ananda. But the mind, however it has come because of a causal body, it is causing so much distortion and disturbance from time to time, moment to moment, that the mastery of the mind, the realization of the structure of the mind, the flow of energy within the mind, and then of course the body and the relations outside and the people outside, all of that comes right into balance and awareness in the Brahmic state. Remember, always please remember this, and if you don't remember, you might want to write it down. The last verse in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, that is the goal, that the Brahmic consciousness, I am the Brahman, we say that, but Esha Brahmi Sthiti, see the word Sthiti. The word Sthiti means what? That one has become established in the Brahman. I may say that yes, I am Brahman, or Aham Brahmasmi, or Nijatmanam Brahmarupam. I may use these verses, Aksharamaham. So many verses are there. Okay, no problem. That's a mental activity. For me to say, you know, Soham, Soham, Shivoham, Shivoham, the Advaitic mantras, I can speak them, so can you. And then we can say the, you know, Soham or Dasoham, I am the devotee. So Advaita and Bhakti combine together. How do they combine that? In sadhana they combine also. That I am the infinite consciousness, the infinite being, Akshara Brahma, without limit. That is who I am, because the Atma is Nirakar, and once the causal body goes away, it's the oneness with the infinite consciousness. But in that infinite realization, there is also bhakti. That Bhagavan is there, God is there. May I be devoted to God. Then there is a Brahmamaya Sharir. It is a body that is obtained by the grace of God to see God. We cannot see actually the form of the Paramatma without the grace of the Paramatma, who gives the Atma that Brahmamaya Sharir. And from that Brahmamaya Sharir, the Jivatma is actually able to see the Paramatma. This is a very esoteric and very high level metaphysics. But the reason I mention this now is better to mention it now, even if it is not understandable, simply because at some point this will become clear. And not only that, it will be anubhav, it will come into experience when the time is right. You know, because if we go into Brahmic consciousness, where all of the ignorance has completely ended, we are going to have the realization of the Atma, and the Atma is without form. Atma is Nirakar. When we realize the Atma and the Brahman are the one, we feel that is the end point. That there's, I am everything. Soham, 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 soham. Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi. There is such a stage. Is it difficult to reach such a stage? No, it's not. You might find that a strange statement on my part. Why am I saying it's not difficult? Actually, it's the most straightforward thing. You know what's difficult? Is to maintain this craziness within Maya. But we are so intensely wanting to do that as a human species. That's why we find the Brahmic consciousness extremely difficult. Because we are holding on with heart and soul and mind and everything, the three gunas of Maya. We'll not let them go under any circumstances. And then we suffer, and the humanity suffers because of that. And that's why, because the suffering is so intense, then one finds the spiritual path very difficult. Of course it's going to be difficult if you're holding on to the three gunas of Maya with intensity. But spiritual realization is just a two-step process only. One is to absolutely let go the three gunas by resonating with by resonating with the scriptures and the state of the great sages. This is step number one. It's only two-step process. There's only two steps here. There's not even a third one. The first step and the last step in the first step, the first part of this process is total resonance with Sadguru, with Satpurush. Total resonance. So there's no gunas of Maya. You take all the great sages and bring them inside. That is the biggest sadhana. It's a direct approach. All the scriptures are there. The mind doesn't know what to do with that. Sachin is speaking this. If Sachin is speaking it and not resonating myself, it's only words, meaningless. I have to actually check myself. Am I in that resonance? And if I'm not, then that is my ego. That means I want the three gunas of Maya. That means I want the pain that is being experienced in the sansar because of being entrapped in the three gunas of Maya. That's my ego that is active. And that's the whole point. What is the barrier between the Atma and the entangled state of the Jiva? It's the ego. In Vedas, Swaminarayan Bhagwan, Sajanand Swami, he has mentioned a beautiful term called Aham Jivam Granthi. It's a knot that I am this Jiva. And that knot has to be dissolved if we are going to realize the Atma and the Paramatma. If we don't want to realize the Atma and the Paramatma, then millions of lifetimes are still awaiting us. This is the declaration of all of the rishis in the Vedic tradition. Sachin is not making it up, that's the reference. Now, are they lying about that? Is that something false? Well, that is their experience or realization from the higher state. Now, there is evidence about rebirth and reincarnation. There's actually quite a bit of evidence on that. And I won't go into all that right now. There's many documentaries and all kinds of things are there. So, because that is called metapsychosis. See, people have psychosis in this world. But every jiva has metapsychosis. That is transmigration. The mental framework, the antayamati sagati, the whatever has been developed in one's life, that state of mind creates the next life, then the next one, and the next one. My God, if we really sit with these ideas in meditation and in contemplation, we would become awakened into that first step to drop the three gunas. Then we are, the moment the three gunas are dropped, we are in that Brahmic state. It is a one-step realization. And then what is the next step beyond that? Actually, there isn't a next step. There is only the basking in the joy of bhakti. It's only two steps, but to get to those two steps, there are thousands of ways of describing this thing. And that's where this Ashtanga Yoga, this slide that you see here, we have been talking about that in more detail and going through it sequentially. And again, all of this is just, Sachin is speaking for Sachin's benefit. It's not even about anybody else. Otherwise, it'll become an externalized vritti. That's another problem in spirituality. There's so many endless number of problems. That's another one of them. Sachin speaks something, says something, or even somebody says, "Oh, Sachin, you did a good job," or "This sounds like a good idea." Just a small good comment. The ego gets hold of that and then is lost immediately. Finished. The game over. Then the ego takes over. Then the ego begins to try to find its joy through its strengthening. And that's a very dangerous thing. In Vachanamrut, there's actually an analogy given. In the name of the Vachanamrut is Garada Pratham 41 Vachanamrut. Maharaja said inside there that Man Rupi Haduku. What that means is that when a dog is chewing on the bone, sometimes they chew their own cheek and the blood comes from there. But they enjoy the blood. They don't realize it's their own blood. So similarly, the person with the ego is getting gratification from the ego, is chewing up the energy within oneself and damaging oneself and thinking that is joy. That is a Vachanamrut, Man Rupi Haduku Vach. It's a very interesting Vachanamrut that sometime we'll go into it. It's a very dangerous thing. It's happened to sadhaks and gurus also. I mean, it would not be real gurus in that sense. You could have 1,000 people sitting in a big sabha hall or a big auditorium, and big pravachans are given and sadhanas are shown, and all of that can still be done through ego. It's very dangerous, and it can be done without ego also. That's that line between the Brahmic state, Aham Brahmasmi, and the Aham Jivam Granthi. There's that fine line. So that if I say that I am the infinite, the ego is not present there. And if the ego in the mistaken way says I am the infinite, then the ego is just getting inflated and bigger. So that is a danger to always be very mindful of. So the Brahmic consciousness is available for us in total resonance with enlightenment. That what is enlightenment? We have some concept of it. We see the great sages. We see all of these ideas from the different yogas and said, I am that only. But not this limited three gunas. The three gunas of Maya are the prison within which the Jivatma has been bound. And the only way to come out of that prison is to resonate completely with those beings or that reality which is outside the three gunas. Gunatit. Gunatit sa uchyate. Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita uses this word also, gunatit, beyond the three gunas. And the Atma is always beyond the three gunas, but it somehow feels it is in this. So if we want total joy, total freedom, total enlightenment, total unentanglement, we can have that. And is it difficult? Absolutely not. It's not difficult, but we make it difficult. In fact, rather, the fact is, the mind in its conditioning is always trying to maintain and reassert itself, come what may. But to be aware of that conditioning and say, no, that's not me. I need to discover who is me. This is, it's the viveka. What is not me and what is me? Anatma. It's called Atma, Anatma, Vivek. Vivek is this differentiation that this is not me, but I am this. And that differentiation occurs through bhakti and upasana of God. So if we worship Paramatma, any form that we like, if we worship Paramatma as Paramatma, that you are, oh Lord, you are great, or goddess, or however we want to consider, we start have a bhakti bhav, then that bhakti bhav has the power within it to produce the viveka inside. So that things like pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, these things begin to happen. These things occur naturally, the senses become stabilized, concentration begins to get more established, meditative absorption inside the form of God. So the viveka comes. That is establishment of viveka through bhakti. It can go the other way also. One can start with viveka and then get established in bhakti. That's the beauty of this. Okay, so let's go a little bit further here. That was some of just the background from our many days of contemplation. Yesterday we talked about asteya, a very powerful concept. Today I want to go into APARIGRAHA, number 5. We'll skip brahmacharya just for the time being. We'll talk about that later sometime. That's a very profound and very tricky subject. At some point, I will have to create like a special series of workshops just to discuss what is brahmacharya all about. Because it is a very, very twisted subject in some sense. There are hundreds of viewpoints on it. Many gurus have taught in different ways. And then there's the whole biological, neurological, psychological background also behind that. So, and then there's the energy system behind it. So this is a very big subject of brahmacharya. And I've written a book, on that also. And there are many other books available. There are some really outstanding websites like manthanhub.com that talk about this. But again, even if somebody has an understanding of brahmacharya, the actual practice of it and getting established in it is not that easy. So it's something that I will at some point, a couple of months from now, at some point, we'll kind of really have some special presentation with some people, pre-signed up for that, because that tends to be a protracted subject, very difficult to understand, and there are thousands of questions around it. So we'll skip that for now, but that's just a prelude. I want to talk about APARIGRAHA. This is really interesting. Remember, this is one of the 5 pieces within the yama. So the 5 yamas. The yam is the first stage of Ashtanga Yoga, 8-fold yoga. So APARIGRAHA is the 5th one. I mean, they're all together. All 5 are together, not in a hierarchical or gradation. APARIGRAHA is very, very, very beautiful. There's a great beauty in APARIGRAHA. APARIGRAHA means to not have avarice, greed, possessiveness. Now, this word possessiveness, to be possessive, I am possessing this, that is a constriction. It is a restriction. It is a bondage towards the objects and towards the circumstance that we may be possessing. Now let's use some examples here. See, we possess objects. We need objects in the world. Now, this should not be misunderstood. Having the needed objects or even enjoyable objects is not necessarily a problem. The problem comes into play is with what I have, I want just more of that, and I'm not okay with what I have. That is where APARIGRAHA comes into play. One may say, yes, I want to even have a bigger house. I want more rooms, I have more bigger family, this and that. But I'm still okay with the one I have. Yes, I'd like the other one, but this is completely fine too. No problem. There's no psychological reaction in that. So that is called having a desire that doesn't have the reaction of lacking the object. It's a little bit technical. Let me see if I can put it in a way that could really make sense clearly. Generally what happens when I have desire, say Sachin is living in this house, let's say. So Sachin says, okay, I see this bigger house down the street. I will be really happy when I get that house. Or I'll be really happy when I get this thing which I don't have right now. But that means I am not satisfied with what I have. Now, there's a conundrum here. Most people would say, including psychologists, they might say, what is your motivation then? What is your motivation to keep progressing further if you don't have the desire for progressing further, or if you are not in a state of lacking? If I'm saying that, I'm just fine here, completely in my small house, even if I can afford the bigger one, I said I don't want anything bigger, this is perfectly okay, then I'm satisfied with what I have. Then is there a desire for the new one? In the usual framework of the mind, there may not be, or there could be, but if the desire shows up, then I'm not okay with what I have now. This is usually the way the mind works. But I want to challenge that. Sachin is going to challenge that whole idea completely from the root. That it doesn't have to be that way, even though it is. I could say, yes, I have this house right now, or I have, let's just take my cell phone. This is like cell phone 7 or 8 or whichever this one was. I don't remember. Now these new ones have come about. So my mom and some others have been saying, Sachin, why don't you go and get the bigger one and all that? I said yes, I can. When I saw the latest model, it has some additional features. I said, wow, this is nice, and it'd be nice to have that. Sure, why not? But at the same time, I'm satisfied with this one. So if I choose to have the new one, the new house, the new phone, whatever, but I am not damaging my state of satisfaction, that is APARIGRAHA, without damage, where you are getting the new thing, but there isn't any lacking from within. It is just an expansion of joy. This may be a bit difficult to understand, and some people may not agree with it, and that's perfectly fine. I would love to hear from you. It's not about agreement or disagreement. It's about examining together, is this possible? Because if you really look at human civilization, it's only because we are wanting to progress further that we have come to this stage. If everybody said, I'm just happy with what I have, I don't want anything else, nothing else, then how does progress happen? So, the contention Sachin is making is of two kinds. One is to be in a state of satisfaction. Okay, what I have, beautiful. Bhagwan ki krupa, no problem. At the same time, if desire comes up, desire can come up without damaging satisfaction. This is the new idea, perhaps. I haven't heard it put that way before. Maybe somebody has put it that way. If you know anybody who has, you let me know. I'd like to read more about that, about what they're trying to say. But this has been in my mind for many years, that this is possible. There is this possibility. And that actually solves multiple problems. It allows one to further experience the material world without damaging the state of equilibrium, satisfaction, or even the Brahmic consciousness. And believe it or not, some people might find this difficult to even accept, but in Vachanamrutam, Sajanand Swami has talked exactly this thing about himself actually, and other gurus have also taught, because he's mentioned that the highest quality of the sense objects may be around, but the mind is unattached. But that doesn't mean there is no interaction. There is interaction. There is the experience, but there is no entanglement, because of the realization of the Atma that I am the fountain of joy, or God is the fountain of joy within me. So in the material world, if progress is to be made, if further convenience is to be added, how is that attachment? Just because Sachin takes this cell phone and now he says there's a couple of 7 or 8 new features in the new model, so I'd like to have those new features for my convenience, is that a lack of realization? Or is that desire non-spiritual? Not at all. Not at all. That desire, in fact, is going to allow me to do my work better. So that, but the problem, you see, psychologically where the ignorance exists is that internally I start feeling inside by seeing my current phone or my current house that this is not good enough. And then because of that, then I start feeling uneasy. I start feeling, oh no, I want that other one. Then I'll be okay. That's Maya. That's Rajogun. That's the gunas of Maya. That's the ego getting itself entangled in the desire process. See this clearly. Think about this. Go into this. It's taken many years in my own life to try to bring this realization, or somehow it came to me. I don't know how exactly. That this is the actual thing. If you don't agree, I'd love to hear from you. Because see, traditionally people think you have to give up the objects of the senses and just live a very simple life and not have money possessions and let everything go as much as possible. Okay, you may let it go because there's a lot of bliss from within. But that letting go has become like a sadhana, and then there are reactions to that because the desires react to that. We may let go of the object outside, but the internal desire for it may increase. Then you're in real trouble at that point. Neither here nor there. And all this thing is in the Gita, by the way. Everything that Sachin is saying, I can show you from verse by verse from the Gita where it is. Karmindriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran. Indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyacharah sa uchyate. It's a verse in the Gita. You may be restraining yourself externally, living a very, very simple life, but the burning of the desires is going on. Sri Krishna says mithyacharah sa, which is useless. There's no spiritual benefit. Nothing is there. Seems like something is there. It's the illusion. And people read things like this yama and all, APARIGRAHA. What does the mind say? Oh, let me just throw everything away. Let me just, not have anything. Very, very limited. Okay, you may have that. But what about desire? If the desire is not there, then it doesn't matter. But if the desire does come that I want something a little bit more better for convenience, for a greater experience, that desire is not a problem if one is allowing that desire to flower and die down without damaging inner satisfaction with where one is now and with what one has now. That is really something. Is that even possible? I'm putting that as a question. Is that psychologically, neurologically, and emotionally possible? All we know about desire is that we want something. And when that desire comes up, we are not okay with what we have. This is what humanity knows. And that's why humanity suffers. But there is not the understanding and clarity about desire, nor is there mastery excuse me, nor is there mastery over desire. That is the difference between sadvasana and asadvasana. This is again in Vachanamrutam. And this is again in many other scriptures too. Asadvasana is, I'm not okay, I just want more. I want something that, it's the ego that takes hold, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. It happens in social circles also. Somebody has a bigger house, or somebody's kids are more advanced in some classes, constant comparison, this and that. One is trapped in all those things. So leave all that aside. See where you are. Keep attention on your progress further. Find out what is satisfaction in life right now. But that satisfaction is not dullness. It is not lack of progress. It is not just a zero state of just like a tamasic state of just not wanting to do anything. That's not the case. Even Vivekananda Swami has written extensively about this point. He has stated that people are in that tamoguni state of just not wanting to do anything. Is that enlightenment? Ridiculous. In fact, he said that they need to become more rajoguni. They have to become more active. If they have rajogun, that's a good thing for them actually. Wanting the things of the material world, wanting to activate themselves. At least their energies will start flowing. This is Vivekananda Swami's teaching this. I don't know if you know this, you may have read this. And then of course those who are satvoguni, those who are rajoguni, after experiencing rajogun, they realize that this is limited. Then the mind shifts into sattvagun. Oh, let me learn about spirituality. Let me do some yoga. Let me do some meditation. Let me listen to satsanga. Let me go to different gurus. Those feelings are sattvic in nature. Like Sachin is speaking right now. I think my mind is fairly sattvic right now. Yours probably would be too. So that evolution into sattvagun, even if there is sattvagun, these other aspects of development in life, like for example family development, or having children, or having a bigger home, or having a better career, or getting all those things can be done with that great inner satisfaction, which is kind of sattvic in nature, but it's even beyond that. It's that Brahmic sthiti. That Esha Brahmi sthiti partha nainam prapa vimuyati. There's no delusion. It's very clear. You are in the Brahmic consciousness. Think of it this way. I'll put it to you this way. I use a financial example. It's easy to understand. You have $1 billion. I always use that $1 billion example. Even Gunatitanand Swami used to speak in these kinds of terms. He used to speak in crore rupiya male tenu su false, like this. It's easy to understand like this. That's why. If Sachin has $1 billion, you have $1 billion, 1 billion exactly in the bank, you have it accessible. And you have a desire to do something, to work somewhere, let's say, minimum wage job, or maybe $20 an hour for 6 months, you're doing that not to earn money really. Yeah, you'll get some money. You're a billionaire. You're doing it for the experience of working at that place, which has inherent value to you because that experience has inherent value. That is an example of satisfaction with a desire propping up on the substratum of satisfaction. That is Brahmic state. When you are in the oceanic consciousness of the Brahmic state and desires prop up, that is to experience something in the material world. Now, why is even that desire there to experience? Because we are living inside the body. We have senses and mind. We are in the material world to experience the material world. Otherwise, we would not even see the material world. We would see some other world or something beyond. But because we are here, we are going to be within the framework of the material world and we want to experience it. But the satisfaction internally, the Brahmic state through which we are interacting with the material objects is what the Bhagavad Gita teaches. It says Ragadvesha Vayuktaistu Vishayan Indriyaischcharan Atma Vaishyair Videyatma Prasadam Vadigachati. So beautifully explained. That the raga and dvesha. So if you're working, as an analogy, you're working at that $20 per hour job and you don't do the job properly, and the manager gets really upset. Manager doesn't know who you are, that you're a billionaire. So then you have to, if you want to stay in that place, you cannot tell that person you're a billionaire. You have to say, okay, let me, because you want the experience of that. You want to see what's going on there. And you are enjoying that experience, the whole thing. It's a leela. A billionaire works for McDonald's as a McDonald's manager or some Subway employee. He's doing that for the experience of that thing. Not to earn money and not for anything else, not because of the way other people are working, out of fear and out of necessity and out of limitation and out of poverty and all the disaster that is there. See the analogy. So APARIGRAHA has all of this truth within it. If we really look at it in its intense state, because we are living in the world, we cannot get out of the world. Even those who are trying to get out of the world are still in the world. So the world is not the issue. It's about realizing that I am this ocean of joy. And that is where bhajan, bhakti, satsang, katha, mantra sadhana, all of the adhyatmic sadhana, guru bhakti, guru ashraya, all of these things come into play to open up the Brahmic consciousness that you are. And once that is open, everything in the world is going to be non-binding. Nothing can touch you. And everything becomes equal. Samaloshtasma kanchana samatva. Bhagavad Gita teaches the samatva. Everything becomes equal because there is the real vision to see beyond the Prakriti. Just as the billionaire goes into the subway and starts working there for the experience, within short time, he sees the experience maybe within 2-3 weeks and immediately jumps beyond it. So this is the experience. There's this much truth behind it. That's it. He leaves it. He doesn't need to stay there. He just wanted to gain some anubhav of the material world. Similarly, the one who is in the Brahmic consciousness experiences all kinds of things in the material world, but recognizing each and every limitation in the material world. In Swamini Vato, Gunatitanand Swami said, Vishayanu sukh shanik che, nashvanta che, dukrup che. It's shanik meaning it's temporary. It is ephemeral. It is going to go. And it has dukh within it. It's a realization the Gunatit saints have realized. Anybody who is in a Gunatit state, you and I also, we can be in that state. If we open our eyes and see that the worldly interaction, the worldly experiences are all limited. Doesn't mean we're giving them up. It simply means we realize they're limited. We retract right back into the Brahmic consciousness. There's another verse in the Gita. It's in chapter 2 also. Yada sanharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyastasya tasya prajna pratishtita. That's actually, I'll tell you where that is. I'll have to put them inside the PowerPoint a little bit later. This one is actually verse 73, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, 73. Hold on, 1 second. I just want to be clear about this. Just a second. If you don't mind, I'm going to find the correct verse. 72. Okay. Just a second here. Well, that's the verse. It basically gives this realization. Hold on here. Yeah, here it is. It's verse 58. It's verse 58 in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. Now see this. This is very interesting. It says, Yada sanharate chayam kurma ungani vasarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. That's the actual verse. Very powerful. This is exactly what we're talking about. That just as the tortoise withdraws all of its limbs into its shell, similarly, the enlightened person, enlightened being, withdraws from the entanglements of the world and dives into the Brahmic consciousness. What an idea this is. You go throughout the whole day, do your job, do whatever we have to do, and then again rest back into the Atma. This is living liberation. It's like that billionaire. Remember that example, it's very clear. I think it should be clear. Goes to work for Subway, McDonald's, or some fast food restaurant, or Walmart or something. Goes to different places. Every month he's changing job, going for two weeks at a time. 30 different locations, 30 different businesses, just to get idea. But when he comes home, is he having the state of mind as an ordinary person working at Subway who is caught up inside the bills and problems of the daily life? No. He's coming in, he's in that billionaire consciousness. There's no issue of any money or anything like that. There's no issue of the struggle of life. But the activity is the same. A regular 16, 17-year-old working at Subway, a high school teenager, and that billionaire working side by side. The activity is the same. The retraction back into the Atma is unbelievably different. It's totally dimensionally different. Although the activity is exactly the same. Incredible. So, APARIGRAHA has all of this wisdom in reality within it. Non-possessiveness. Non-possessiveness is there when you are in the Brahmic consciousness. That is why Brahmacharya is mentioned before that. Brahmacharya in the broadest sense is the revolving into the Brahman. Charya means to revolve inside the Brahmic consciousness. It's not just about sexual transmutation, it's part of that. That's part of it. But it's more than that. It's this Brahmic state where you are flowing with divine qualities day in and day out, day in and day out. They're flowing from within you. Nothing in the outside world can ever touch that fountain of enlightenment. Impossible. It can never happen. Never in a billion years it can happen, because you are in that realization. Now, as a sadhana to get to that realization, as I mentioned before, we can take a step-by-step approach. Yes, we want to realize this. But we don't want to be just in that process for a long time. We can simply make the assertion, I am in that state. And in that state, all of these beautiful qualities are with me. I am ahimsa. I have ahimsa. Satya is there. Asteya is there. Brahmacharya is there. Aparigrahata is there. Everything is there. Everything that I want, the inner wealth is with me. And in that inner wealth, then from that inner wealth, activity in this world is done without the pulling and tugging of the mind through its ignorance. Ignorance is dissolved. Ignorance is stopped completely. How is it stopped? By total resonance, not partial and not 99%. 100% resonance with all of the gurus, with all of the scriptures, with all of the lives of the great saints, that's who I am. And we resonate with sages that are beyond the three gunas. If we want to be enlightened or move, we have to resonate with those who are outside the pangs of the three gunas, through their teachings, words, life, charitra, karya, etc. And if we are just wanting to remain within the chains of the three gunas, sattva gun, rajagun, tamogun, then we have the outside people that are already imprisoned in this world. And we keep resonating with them, what we will get? More of that only. So that's the secret of spirituality, to be able to interact with the people on the outside who are 99.999% totally bound by the three gunas and by endless number of desires that they're trying to fulfill, and they create more and more entanglement. There's just no end to it. Absolutely none. We can see it. If you don't see it directly now, through very great number of difficulty. In fact, Swami Chinmayan used to explain this. If we don't realize it earlier, the life will teach us by getting kicked 1,000 ways what the truth of this is. And then one realizes, oh, this is the three gunas of Maya. We can choose to realize right now, oh, I want to see Maya as to what it is, and move and stay above it and continue to do my activity. And in doing so, the internal power is never disturbed. And that is the extraordinary beauty of these 5 yamas. They bring all of the energies within, synchronized within. And in doing so, we are able to beautifully, compassionately interact. Think of it, again, go back to that billionaire example. That billionaire goes to work at Subway. He doesn't tell anybody he's a billionaire. He has to put on the act as if he is interacting with those people in that restaurant. He cannot reveal he is a billionaire. Not at all. He has to completely leave that aside and play the role, play the game of mixing with those people. Then only can he get the understanding and experience he wants, and he can enjoy that experience as a leela. This is called leela. The difference between leela and karma is this much only. The person working at the Subway, struggling financially, trying to make ends meet, is trapped inside karma. Because of the struggle, the constant strife, the back and forth, fighting for every dollar. The most terrible thing in life. The sansar is like this. Most of the sansar is like this. But the billionaire who is in there, there's no issue. There's a radiance, there's a glory, there's a power that just abides. Even others will say, you're so amazing, and he can do the work, making those subs and everything. It's done with so much joy because of the background of the $1 billion. See this analogy. This analogy is really, it really should hit the nail on the head. If you have that tremendous wealth from Antarik Vaibhav, who is going to touch you? Who is there anybody in this entire universe that can touch you? Nobody. Not anybody. Nobody has that power. And to get to that stage, one of the biggest and most important sadhanas is the worship of the Devi. Because she is the one in charge of this material world. And when we do this mantra, Om Aim Reem Klim Chamundaya Viche, this mantra enhances this internal power and it connects us with the Brahman. It builds the internal wealth. And as the internal wealth grows, the other upasanas, whatever upasana there is, Krishna upasana, Ram upasana, Hanumanji bhakti, or it is Christ or Judaism or any other upasana, Swaminarayan bhakti, any bhakti, whatever you're doing, that will all really reach its fruition with total energy integration. That is why Shiva mantra and Devi mantra are essential to build the inner wealth. And once you have the internal wealth, quote the $1 billion analogy, once you are in that state, whatever you do, you're doing without attachment. You're doing as for joy only. You're not doing it because of the inward poverty, as I mentioned by J. Krishnamurti. The greater the inward poverty, the greater the outward show. What a statement that is. How true that is. Okay, so that's good enough for now. This can keep going on. It's very amazing things actually are available for us. So many, many prayers to all the great sages to bless us as we move forward. Let's finish our sadhana for today.